Chapter 357. Infiltrating the enemy's ranks. Seeing Li Diang so resolute, Lin Chia was taken aback for a moment, then nodded after pondering for a while. Once the group was ready, they used ropes to descend, moving slowly down the vertical wall. Although they had various means to reach the bottom of the crack, such as Bai Li Pengpeng's Yao Guang or Lin Chia's verses, the situation at the bottom remained a mystery to them. Recklessly using the forbidden ruins could expose them and attract a swarm of ants. From the beginning, Lin Chia and his companions had only one target: the Ant Queen. The appearance of such a mysterious group meant that if the core leader was killed, the other subordinates would naturally dissipate. Thus, avoiding combat with other giant ants was the best strategy. To prevent exposure, Lin Chia deliberately left the iron box containing soldier ants above. Otherwise, with it constantly communicating with its companions, it would be nearly impossible for Lin Chia and the others to sneak in unnoticed. After descending for a long time, Lin Chia's mental energy finally reached the bottom of the crack. His brow furrowed as he raised his hand to signal. The others immediately halted their descent. "What's wrong?" Bai Li Pengpeng whispered. "There are worker ants below." "How many?" "The entire bottom of the crack is swarming with them." Lin Chia's gaze swept across the deep bottom, his expression grave. He roughly estimated there were at least 400. Over 400? The faces of the four turned pale simultaneously. How could there be so many? Chao Yuan exclaimed in confusion. Even if a Sea Realm group mysteriously descended, the numbers shouldn't be this terrifying. Initially it wouldn't be possible, Lin Chia sighed. But don't forget, this crack has been here for about 2 years. You mean they arrived here 2 years ago and have been living in this crack? Li Diang's face turned ashen. Unless something unexpected happened, that should be the case. Lin Chia nodded. In these 2 years, the Ant Queen has been continuously breeding new offspring, so it's not surprising that the numbers have accumulated to such a terrifying level. And this is just what I can sense now. The actual number is likely even higher, Lin Chia added. The group fell silent. They could handle 40 worker ants, but facing over 400 from the river realm was beyond their capability. Moreover, this was an extremely narrow crack, making escape exceptionally difficult. Being devoured by ants was almost a certain fate. If so many giant ants emerge from the forest and sweep through the city, several nearby major cities would likely fall immediately. Li Diang frowned tightly. Unless a special team intervenes, no group could stop them. Li Diang seemed to have thought of something and turned to Lin Chia, saying, "With so many giant ants, even if you guys are powerful, you won't be able to cope. We've already located the ant nest. We should retreat back to the city for now and wait for a special team to handle it." Li Diang's suggestion was very reasonable. From any angle, the current situation had completely exceeded the capabilities of Lin Chia and his 3 companions. The best course of action was to record the location of the ant nest and retreat. If they were to be wiped out here, it would truly be a loss. Lin Chia and the others exchanged glances and forced a wry smile. Let a special team handle it? They themselves were a special team. They couldn't just retreat like this and tell Yi Fan that they couldn't handle the situation here and needed a more reliable special team to come. After all, this was their team's first mission. If it ended in such a ridiculous manner, who would be satisfied? "No, we won't go back." Lin Chia shook his head. "As long as we avoid these worker ants and find the Ant Queen to carry out a decapitation strike, the chances of success are still quite high." Chao Yuan and the others nodded in agreement. "But the problem is, how do we confirm the location of the Ant Queen?" And Qingyu pondered aloud. "The length of this crack is not short and the visibility is poor. The terrain makes it inconvenient for us to search thoroughly, and any misstep could provoke the 400 worker ants below. I can transform into a worker ant and blend in with them to search for the Ant Queen's location at the bottom of the crack," Lin Chia said slowly. "Chia, are you sure?" Bai Li Pengpeng couldn't help but speak up. "What if you're discovered? You'll be chased by hundreds of giant ants." "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing," Lin Chia replied calmly. "You all wait here and don't act rashly." He took off his backpack and removed the bulky cold weather gear, handing everything to Bai Li Pengpeng to store. He wore only a thin black shirt and strapped 2 straight knives to his back. He unfastened his rappelling gear and gently leaped down one side of the rock wall, heading toward the deep bottom of the crack. The other four watched him disappear into the darkness, their eyes filled with concern. As Lin Chia continued to descend, a magical glow flashed across him, and in the next moment he transformed into a red worker ant. Lin Chia had fought against this group of giant ants several times, having killed at least 7 worker ants, so he was relatively familiar with them. Now transformed into a worker ant, he bore no flaws in appearance. He quickly climbed along one side of the wall and soon saw the situation at the bottom. At the narrow bottom of the crack, one red worker ant after another marched in neat lines, moving in 2 opposite directions, surging like a tide. Just a glance was enough to make one's scalp tingle. At that moment, as another worker ant climbed down from the side wall, several ants paused, seemingly confused. However, upon confirming it was a companion, they showed no suspicion and continued moving in the original direction. Lin Chia, now disguised as a worker ant, successfully blended into one of the lines, mimicking the actions of the other ants as he moved forward with the tide. At this point, Lin Chia himself didn't know which direction the Ant Queen was in. He could only follow this path for now and, if necessary, turn back to search in the other direction. After about 5 minutes of walking with the worker ant line, the distance between the rock walls narrowed further. Finally, at the end of the gorge, he vaguely spotted a massive white giant ant. This white giant ant was larger than any he had seen before, standing nearly 4 meters tall, resembling a small white mountain, and was currently lying on the ground as if it were in a deep slumber. Chapter 358, Lin Chia's Tribute. From the overwhelming pressure it exuded, there was no doubt that this was a mysterious creature of the sea realm. This was the Ant Queen. Lin Chia observed the sleeping white ant from a distance and his heart sank. Surrounding the Ant Queen were densely packed black soldier ants, neatly encircling her, numbering over 40. Each one radiated the pressure of a peak-level entity from the river realm, constantly vigilant of their surroundings, like a group of loyal guards. With these soldier ants present, the possibility of silently executing a decapitation strike was nearly non-existent. As Lin Chia pondered how to bypass the soldier ants and kill the Ant Queen, he moved forward along the line of worker ants. As he got closer to the Ant Queen, Lin Chia finally saw the front of the line. He noticed that worker ants were passing through the open space in front of the Ant Queen, dropping various fruits, scraps of meat, bird carcasses, or wild game hunted in the forest behind them. Although these were all small morsels, insufficient to even fill the Ant Queen's gaps, their sheer number had already formed a small mountain in front of the sleeping Ant Queen. Looking around, Lin Chia noticed that each worker ant seemed to carry some food, placing it in front of the Ant Queen under the watchful eyes of the soldier ants. A bad premonition suddenly arose in Lin Chia's heart. It was clear that this line was specifically for offering food to the Ant Queen. If he reached the front of the line without any food to present, it would undoubtedly raise suspicion from the surrounding soldier ants and even the Ant Queen. If they attempted to communicate with him, his cover would be blown. After all, Lin Chia had merely transformed into the appearance of a worker ant and did not know how to communicate among them. Moreover, in his transformed state he could not use any abilities except for magic. To utilize the communication ability of the Starry Night Dancer, he would have to revert to his original form. However, once he did that, the countless giant ants around him would attack. To avoid raising suspicion from the other giant ants, he could only offer a tribute, but he had nothing on him. When he reached the Ant Queen, what could he present as a tribute to pass through unnoticed? After much contemplation, a bold idea suddenly emerged in Lin Chia's mind. If he did this, perhaps he could not only pass through unnoticed but also severely injure or even directly kill the Ant Queen. The giant ant that Lin Chia had transformed into slightly bowed, and while the other worker ants were distracted, a flash of magical light suddenly passed beneath it, followed by the appearance of a small mummy, looking bewildered behind it. Upon seeing the worker ant beneath it, the mummy was momentarily stunned, but quickly reacted, affectionately sticking to the back of the worker ant. Even though Lin Chia had changed his appearance, the soul contract between him and the mummy remained unchanged. As long as Lin Chia focused his thoughts, he could communicate with the mummy without barriers. Carrying the mummy on his back, Lin Chia moved forward step by step. Suddenly, a muffled sound was heard, and the sleeping Ant Queen seemed about to awaken, her massive body slowly rising. The Ant Queen lifted her head, glanced at the small mountain of food in front of her, and then lowered her head again, seemingly dissatisfied with the offerings. She lazily lay there watching one worker ant after another present the food they had gathered, showing no interest whatsoever. Suddenly, a red worker ant approached her, swayed its body, and tossed a small white object into the food mountain. Then it leisurely turned and walked back along the line. Atop the food mountain, the small mummy climbed to the peak, looking around in confusion and waved at the ant queen lying on the ground. Buzz. Seeing a living creature atop the food mountain, the ant queen immediately became interested. Her massive body stood up from the ground and walked step by step toward the food mountain. The mummy sat at the peak, completely overshadowed by the ant queen's shadow, yet showed no fear. Instead, it tilted its head and made a heart shape with its two small fingers toward the ant queen. The ant queen was taken aback and her appetite was instantly piqued. She opened her mouth wide and swallowed the mummy along with the food mountain in one gulp. Satisfied, she shook her head and lay back down. In the next moment, beams of light began to emanate from her belly. The ant queen was stunned. The surrounding soldier ants were also taken aback. Boom! A blinding flash of fire erupted from the ant queen's belly, and the deafening explosion echoed throughout the entire ravine, engulfing the ant queen in flames. The surrounding soldier ants were alarmed but had no idea what had happened, rushing toward the ant queen in panic. The piercing cries echoed through the ravine. Amidst the intense flames, the ant queen suddenly burst out from the thick smoke, her entire lower body blown away, green blood flowing from her shattered abdomen onto the ground. Yet even so she was still alive. A green oily mummy slid out from within the ant queen, rolling on the ground for 2 circles, shaking off the blood on its body, and excitedly clapped its hands, seemingly wanting to do it again. In the next moment, a swarm of soldier ants charged toward it. Just as it was about to be overwhelmed, the mummy erupted with magical light and was instantly transported back to its original plane. The soldier ants, having lost their target, could only gather at the spot where the mummy had been, searching carefully in all directions. The severely injured ant queen realized she had been attacked and immediately turned her broken body, stumbling toward a cave behind her. At the same time, the originally orderly line of worker ants fell into chaos. All the worker ants became a jumbled mess, and Lin Chia, mixed in among them, saw that the ant queen was not dead yet and was quickly trying to escape. He immediately sensed that things were going awry. The ant queen wanted to flee. After hesitating for a moment, he made up his mind and swiftly turned back toward the direction of the ant queen. Having finally located the ant queen and severely injured her with the mummy, if he missed this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, who knew when he would find her again? A surge of magical light flowed from the red worker ant, and Lin Chia transformed back into his original body, carrying 2 straight blades. He moved like a ghost between the narrow crevices, rapidly pursuing the ant queen. Meanwhile, the other 4 members on the opposite wall, hearing the explosion from afar, simultaneously changed their expressions. Not good. Save Chia. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The group simultaneously unfastened their rope gear, no longer caring about whether they would expose themselves. A golden flying sword, Yao Guang, carried them like a streak of light toward the direction of the explosion. This suddenly appearing golden giant sword instantly attracted the attention of a large number of worker ants, which immediately climbed up the sides of the crevice, surging toward the group like a tide. Chapter 359. Charge into battle. Clay. Lin Chia leaped forcefully against the wall, propelling himself into the air, a shadow of darkness staining the sky as the twin blades behind him suddenly unsheathed. Killing intent surged. The more than 40 soldier ants surrounding the ant queen rushed towards Lin Chia without hesitation, one after another leaping over their fallen comrades, resembling a black wave rising from the ground. Lin Chia flicked his fingers lightly, and the 2 straight blades whistled through the gaps in the black wave, shooting straight towards the retreating ant queen. Just as the wave of soldier ants was about to crash down on Lin Chia, a reverse summoning spell activated instantly, causing Lin Chia's figure to vanish into thin air. In the next moment he appeared directly behind the wave holding the 2 blades. Even though Lin Chia's speed was incredibly fast, the ant queen's speed was even more astonishing. Although her body seemed to have been blown away, a pair of transparent wings sprouted from her back, and with a gentle flap she flickered forward several hundred meters. In an instant she reached the edge of the cliff. Just when Lin Chia thought the Ant Queen had nowhere to escape, red worker ants began to frantically emerge from a hole at the corner of the cliff. The Ant Queen let out a shriek and all the worker ants immediately surrounded her, forming a red defensive line, while she charged into the hole, disappearing without a trace. Lin Chia did not expect that there would be an ant nest at the end of this cliff. Seeing the Ant Queen vanish, his expression grew increasingly grave. But at this point he had no way out. With his twin blades in hand, he rushed towards the line of red worker ants, his black eyes transforming into shining golden light, as if two furnaces were burning fiercely within them. Get out of the way. Lin Chia, dressed in a thin black shirt, exuded an endless aura of power, instantly overwhelming all the worker ants guarding the entrance of the hole. He wielded his twin blades like lightning, directly sweeping past the bodies of the worker ants, closely following the Ant Queen into the hole. At the same time, a golden sword light streaked across the sky. He followed the Ant Queen into the hole. And Qingyu, who had been watching Lin Chia, suddenly spoke up, pointing towards the hole Lin Chia had entered. Clear a path and we'll follow. Bai Li Pangpang maneuvered the golden sword light, skillfully dodging the attacks of one worker ant after another, beads of sweat sliding down his cheeks. Although his spiritual realm had reached the Chuan realm, carrying 4 people with Yao Guang in one go was still somewhat strenuous for him. Moreover, he had to constantly pay attention to the worker ants on both sides of the cliff to avoid their attacks. Chao Yuan stood at the front of the sword light, slowly reaching for the hilt of his blade, his expression somewhat hesitant. He couldn't guarantee that he would remain rational after drawing his sword. If he didn't control his strength well, he might drag the 3 behind him into the abyss. But if he didn't draw his sword, it seemed they had no way to break through the line of ants. And Qingyu's main attack methods were ice and threads, while Bai Li Pangpang had to pilot Yao Guang, so the task of clearing the way fell solely on him. Chao Yuan took a deep breath. Just as he was about to draw his sword, another figure stepped in front of the sword light and pressed down on his hilt. If you use the Forbidden Ruins, you'll lose control, right? Li Diang said with a slight smile. Leave it to me. In this kind of terrain I can still be of some use. Chao Yuan was taken aback, hesitating for a moment before stepping back 2 paces. The golden sword light dodged the attacks of the worker ants, speeding towards the entrance of the hole. The worker ants that had been suppressed by Lin Chia began to recover, reforming their defensive line, firmly blocking the entrance. Li Diang took a deep breath and leaped down from in front of the golden sword light. This scene left the other 3 stunned. Not good. Just as Chao Yuan prepared to draw his sword to save him, a shocking scene unfolded. Li Diang leaped down from the sword light, directly falling towards the ground in front of the red worker ant line. Just as his figure was about to be overwhelmed by the ants, he slammed his palm onto the ground. Boom! A dull sound erupted from the chasm and jagged cracks spread from the ground beneath Li Diang's feet, instantly connecting the cliffs on either side. In the next moment the ground rapidly collapsed downward. The cracks, which extended for miles, shattered further downward. In an instant, all the giant ants lost their balance and began to plummet rapidly along the collapsing ground. Of course, Li Diang also fell into the chasm. A strong sense of weightlessness filled Li Diang's mind. He forcefully swung the rope at his waist towards the wall, trying to create a landing point, but was deflected by another falling worker ant. Li Diang's expression turned grim. At that moment, an invisible thread suddenly wrapped around his waist, and a tremendous pulling force began to drag his body upward. Li Diang looked up in astonishment to see Qingyu standing beside the sword light, holding an invisible thread, giving him a shy smile. The mysterious thread quickly retracted, and Li Diang was pulled up by Qingyu. Sitting on the sword light, he realized his legs had completely gone weak. Uncle Li, you've got some skills. Bai Li Pangpang controlled the golden sword light, giving Li Diang a thumbs up. Not to mention anything else, just for that courage I admire you. How did you manage to make the ground of this chasm shatter again? Chao Yuan couldn't help but ask. Li Diang glanced at the crack beneath him and replied bitterly, My forbidden ruins create cracks on the surface of objects through vibrations, but my realm is too low, and I can usually only use it to shatter some building structures. The lethality isn't enough. The geological structure here is quite special, making it easy to collapse again. To be honest, I didn't expect the effect to be this good. Bai Li Pangpang was taken aback. Is your forbidden ruins called wandering frequencies? How do you know? Li Diang looked at Bai Li Pangpang in confusion. Chao Yuan smiled and glanced at Bai Li Pangpang. The girl he liked before also had this forbidden ruins. Bai Li Pangpang shot Chao Yuan a glare, looking at Li Diang with curiosity. Isn't that an extremely high-risk forbidden ruins? With that kind of potential, how did you end up assigned to such a remote place as Anta County? You should have no problem getting into the night watchman teams of those first-tier cities, right? Li Diang was taken aback, shaking his head helplessly without saying a word. Seeing that Li Diang was unwilling to speak, Bai Li Pangpang naturally didn't press further, focusing on controlling Yao Guang as he charged straight into the hole in the cliff, disappearing within. Chapter 360. The Mysterious Bronze Giant Door. In the dim cave, Lin Chia moved swiftly forward. It was unclear whether the Ant Queen had entered a state of revival or had initially healed her injuries, but her crawling speed was increasing. In Lin Chia's mental perception, the distance between them was gradually widening. Eventually, the Ant Queen escaped Lin Chia's perception. However, Lin Chia did not stop. Firstly, because there was only one passage in this cave, making it impossible to be shaken off. Secondly, because there were traces of the Ant Queen's blood on the ground. As long as he followed the blood trail, he would eventually find her. Lin Chia chased through the dark cave for several minutes when the narrow rock walls on both sides suddenly disappeared, and the surrounding space opened up. Lin Chia paused, gradually slowing his pace. Before him lay a vast, pitch-black underground space. Even when Lin Chia extended his mental perception to its limit, he could not discern its edges, indicating that the diameter of this space was at least over 500 meters. Turning back, Lin Chia saw a smooth, flat wall behind him, with a circular cave several meters high embedded within it. He had just come out from there. His brow furrowed slightly as he approached the wall and gently rubbed its surface. Unlike the rocky walls inside the cave, this expansive flat wall was constructed from blocks of bluish-gray bricks. Contact with his skin transmitted a cool sensation, and there were no gaps between the bricks, as if they had grown together, crafted with exquisite precision. On the ground in front of the wall, some shattered bricks and dirt were scattered, likely remnants from when the worker ants had dug through the wall. Artificially constructed? Lin Chia gazed at the magnificent bluish-gray wall before him, astonishment flickering in his eyes. It was important to note that this was not just anywhere, but the deepest part of the primeval forest, nearly 100 meters underground. How could there be such a grand artificial wall here? Moreover, judging by the quality and craftsmanship of the bricks, this did not seem to be a modern architectural style. Lin Chia withdrew his hand, pondering for a moment before continuing to follow the blood trail on the ground. Although the origin of this wall was indeed suspicious, the immediate priority was to pursue the severely injured Ant Queen. Nevertheless, Lin Chia remained vigilant. In such a bizarre environment, he had maximized his perception abilities, ready to respond to any potential danger. On the ground, the traces of the Ant Queen's blood were becoming scarcer, and the clues were increasingly vague. It seemed the Ant Queen was not in a state of revival but was rapidly recovering from her injuries. After all, she was a mysterious creature of the sea realm. Even if half her body was blown off, she wouldn't die so easily. As Lin Chia tracked the blood trail forward, he suddenly sensed something and froze in place. He looked up into the deep darkness ahead, a look of intense shock appearing in his eyes. Wildfires cannot be extinguished. Spring winds bring new life. Puff. A faint spark ignited in Lin Chia's palm. With this flicker of light, he finally saw the scene before him clearly. Ahead of him, another wall appeared, but unlike the previous one, this wall was entirely black, emanating an eerie dark light that absorbed all the light falling upon its surface. In the center of this wall stood a grand and ancient bronze giant door, towering over 30 meters high. The surface of the dust-covered door was riddled with mottled dark green patina, appearing dark red under the firelight. If one stared at it for too long, that eerie dark red seemed to imprint itself in the mind, lingering unshakably. Lin Chia quickly shifted his gaze, looking up at the top of the door. The light in his palm could not illuminate the entire bronze giant door, but even so, standing beneath it, he felt an inexplicable sense of oppression enveloping his heart. The most critical issue was that Lin Chia's mental perception could not penetrate this bronze door. Not only this door but the black stone walls on either side were also impenetrable, as if an invisible force was repelling Lin Chia's mental energy, prohibiting any presence from entering. What on earth is this? Lin Chia's brow furrowed tightly, his confusion deepening. This was the northernmost boundary of the Great Xia, deep within the primeval forest beneath the earth. Aside from Lin Chia and his companions, it was impossible for anyone else to have reached this place. Yet here stood such a bizarre and mysterious man-made structure. When did it appear? Who built it? What purpose does it serve? A series of questions surged in Lin Chia's mind as he stood before the bronze giant door, lost in thought. Suddenly he seemed to recall something and began searching around the bronze giant door. From the dust on the door, it appeared that this door had not been opened for a very long time. If that were the case, it meant the Ant Queen had not passed through this door. So where did she go? Moments later, Lin Chia found the answer. He saw that about 50 meters from the bronze door in the corner of the wall, a massive tunnel slanted down into the ground, approximately 7 to 8 meters wide, just the right size for the Ant Queen. From the angle of the tunnel's entrance, it seemed the Ant Queen had dug through the black wall and directly gone to the other side. No, wait. Lin Chia carefully observed the shattered soil on the ground, his brow tightening further. The edges of this tunnel did not curve inward but rather cracked outward. Moreover, judging by the texture of the soil, it seemed this earth had been excavated a long time ago. In other words, this tunnel was dug from inside the wall to the outside and it had existed for a long time. Lin Chia slowly stood up, his gaze at the tunnel entrance growing serious. He had initially thought the Ant Queen was merely a mysterious being that had descended into the crevice of the earth, and that this passage leading to the inside of the bronze giant door was left by her as an escape route. But now it seemed otherwise. The Ant Queen had escaped from behind the bronze giant door. Lin Chia stared at the remnants of blood at the tunnel entrance and sighed helplessly. Everything before him had exceeded his expectations. Whether it was the door itself or the unknown risks behind it, it seemed to warn him not to delve any deeper. He indeed wanted to kill the Ant Queen, but rational analysis of the current situation indicated that it was no longer suitable to continue the pursuit. This mission was destined to end here. Lin Chia turned around, preparing to leave for the time being, when suddenly his body froze again. The faint light flickered in the pitch-black underground space, and under the dim glow, pale paper figures had unknowingly surrounded him from behind. Their hollow eyes stared fixedly at Lin Chia, and the corners of their mouths, painted in crimson, curved into an eerie arc as if they were smiling. Chapter 361. The Mysterious Paper Figure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lin Chia's gaze swept ahead, looking at the dense, pale paper figures, and his heart sank instantly. There were too many. The number of these paper figures was overwhelming. He had no idea where these paper figures had come from. When he had just checked the surroundings, he hadn't found any trace of their existence, as if they had appeared out of thin air at some moment. Lin Chia's back was already soaked with sweat, but even so he maintained his composure. One hand gripped the flame in his palm, while the other slowly reached for the straight knife at his back. From these paper figures he felt no trace of spiritual energy fluctuations, nor was there any distinction in realms, as if a single fire could burn them all to ashes. However, Lin Chia's intuition told him, these paper figures were not that simple. Just as Lin Chia was preparing to attempt a breakout, a spine-chilling scene unfolded. All the paper figures suddenly froze in place, and the features drawn on their faces twisted rapidly, like a face-changing act, sometimes weeping, sometimes sneering, sometimes furious, sometimes smiling. An eerie aura extended from them, like invisible threads intertwining with the life force surrounding Lin Chia. Lin Chia could not see those threads, nor could he perceive them, but in that instant, the flame burning in his palm suddenly extinguished. He felt his body temperature plummet rapidly as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his body became strangely light, a pallor emerging on his face. At the same time, the paper figures surrounding Lin Chia stopped changing their faces. Each feature began to subtly alter. Their hollow gazes started to focus, their crimson lips gradually faded, their noses became more prominent, and strands of black hair extended from their heads. The only thing that remained unchanged was the eerie smile on their faces. They were transforming into Lin Chia, and Lin Chia was transforming into them. The cold, lifeless energy rampaged within Lin Chia's body, as if all his strength had been drained away. He barely managed to hold his form, staring intently at the paper figures that were becoming him, his consciousness beginning to blur. Lin Chia gritted his teeth, took a deep breath, and in the next moment, a golden light burst forth from his eyes. A miracle erupted violently within him. The emergence of this miracle instantly interrupted the transformation occurring on Lin Chia's body. Power surged back into him, his face, which was about to be folded into paper, returned to normal, and his consciousness snapped back. At the same time, the transformation of the paper figures also halted. Some had only transformed their noses, some only their eyes, and some only their hair. They stared in shock at their own faces, suddenly looking up at Lin Chia, their gaunt expressions morphing into extreme rage. They roared silently, their forms swaying like a rushing white tide, rapidly lunging toward Lin Chia. These paper figures did not give up. The eerie aura that had been severed by the miracle began to coalesce again, relinking together, trying to connect with Lin Chia's living energy. Having walked a circle around the gates of death, Lin Chia's face darkened at this scene. The miracle he had just created with the mortal realm divine domain had nearly drained his spiritual energy. This precisely indicated that the bizarre attack of these paper figures had completely exceeded his capacity to cope, and by a wide margin. If he were to be touched by their aura again, Lin Chia would have no chance of escape. He quickly scanned his surroundings, his gaze finally resting on the hole left by the ant queen on the ground. After hesitating for a moment, he made up his mind and leaped into it. Although he did not know what lay behind the door or what dangers awaited, it was better than being drained by this group of paper figures. After Lin Chia jumped into the hole, the paper figures seemed unwilling to let him go, following one after another into the hole, disappearing from sight. A few minutes later, a golden sword light shot out from the ant hole in the gray wall, swirling in the dark underground cavern. Where is this place? Bai Li Pang Pang exclaimed in surprise as the surrounding space suddenly widened. Chao Yuan, holding a flashlight, shone it around, a look of confusion appearing in his eyes. Man-made? Let's go take a look. The four of them jumped down from the golden sword light. Bai Li Pang Pang waved his hand, and Yao Guang transformed into a necklace, returning to his chest. And Qingyu walked up to the gray brick wall, a hint of gray appearing in his eyes. After a moment he slowly spoke. It is man-made but very ancient. Judging by the weathering of the bricks, it should be a product from over 2,000 years ago. Over 2,000 years ago? Chao Yuan was taken aback, calculating that it was during the Han Dynasty, right? And Qingyu nodded. That's correct. During the Han Dynasty, someone built an underground wall in such a remote place. Bai Li Pang Pang frowned slightly. Were they that bored? And Qingyu did not answer but silently observed the other walls around, seemingly lost in thought. Never mind, finding Chia is more urgent. Chao Yuan looked down at the ant queen's blood trail on the ground and said, Chia must have followed the blood trail forward. Let's go. The four of them followed the blood trail for a while and arrived at the black wall, standing before the ancient bronze giant door. Oh my. Bai Li Pang Pang gaped. There's another one? Ancient people really had too much time on their hands. And Qingyu examined the black brick wall for a moment, his brow slightly furrowing. Something's not right. What's not right? This wall is different from the previous one. And Qingyu began slowly. I can't analyze the material of this wall, and the bronze giant door is the same. The molecular structure of these things is unlike any materials known in modern materials science. Unlike? Bai Li Pang Pang tilted his head. So what? These are not things made by humans. As soon as Qingyu said this, the other three fell silent, their expressions turning grave. If it's not man-made, it can only be mysterious or divine. There's a cave over there. Li Diang pointed out the cave Lin Chia had crawled into. Bai Li Pang Pang and the others went over to examine it closely, exchanging glances, all seeing the surprise in each other's eyes. Chia chased after the ant queen and ran through here to the door? Bai Li Pang Pang couldn't help but say, that's too reckless, right? There are no traces of him around. He must have gone in. And Qingyu nodded. Then let's go in too. Buzz. Just as the four were about to enter the cave, a loud buzzing echoed throughout the space. They looked up, their eyes filled with astonishment. Between the black walls, the towering bronze giant door was slowly opening outward. Chapter 362. Ghost City. Boom. In the muffled sound, The dust accumulated on the surface of the bronze giant door slowly fell away, and this ancient and mysterious door finally opened wide for the four of them. The smoke and dust brushed past the four figures as they crouched beside the cave, their eyes filled with shock. As the bronze giant door opened to its limits, the entire space fell into silence once again. The four exchanged glances and sank into silence. Did someone just knock on the door? Bai Li Pang Pang couldn't help but speak up. How could that be? Li Diang's lips twitched slightly. That thing looks sinister at first glance. Who would knock on a door for no reason? Then how did it open? I don't know. Bai Li Pang Pang pondered for a moment, hesitating as he said, should we go through the hole, or use the front door? Let's use the front door. And Qingyu adjusted his glasses and said, the front door at least lets us see what's behind it. If we crawl through the cave, we have no idea what awaits us on the other side. That makes sense. Bai Li Pang Pang gave Qingyu a thumbs up. The four approached the bronze giant door and swept the beam of their flashlight across the space behind it. In the hazy smoke and dust, the outline of an ancient city gradually emerged. Chao Yuan held the hilt of his knife, leading the way, followed by Li Diang, Bai Li Pang Pang and Qingyu. The imagined dangers did not materialize as they successfully passed through the bronze giant door and stepped into the other side of the black walls. The moment they entered, a chilling cold seeped into their skin, causing all of them to shiver simultaneously. Why is it so cold? Li Diang frowned and asked. It's the aura of death. Chao Yuan spoke calmly. The space behind the door was filled with a deathly aura, which greatly suppressed the yang energy of the living. Old Chao, you know quite a bit. Bai Li Pang Pang remarked. My master mentioned it to me. Your master? Bai Li Pang Pang was taken aback as if recalling something. You mean that? Master Jin Chan? Chao Yuan nodded, carefully sweeping the flashlight's beam in front of them. Beneath their feet was a gravel path, flanked by emptiness with nothing around. In the distance, some low earthen houses could be seen, scattered and exuding a chilling, eerie atmosphere. Looks like an abandoned ancient town. Li Diang's brows furrowed tightly, filled with confusion as he spoke. I've been in Anta County for so long. How come I've never heard that there used to be a city in this primeval forest? And Qingyu glanced at him and calmly replied, perhaps you've heard of it long ago. Li Diang was taken aback as if recalling something. You mean those strange legends? The eternal land of the dead that exists deep within the forest. Chao Yuan murmured, which indeed fits the environment here. Upon hearing this, Bai Li Pang Pang couldn't help but swallow hard, cautiously glancing around. The land of the dead, could there be ghosts? He whispered. I don't know. Chao Yuan hesitated for a moment, but Master Jin Chan told me that the deathly aura is gloomy and should be caused by the gathering of wandering souls. However, they generally do not approach places with living energy, and ghosts cannot be seen with the naked eye. Cannot be seen with the naked eye? Bai Li Pang Pang was taken aback as if he thought of something, pulling out a monocle from his pocket. He looked at the monocle in his hand, feeling conflicted. How about I put it on and take a look? What if I really can see ghosts? He had never seen what a ghost looked like in his life. But what if it's really scary? Should I just not look? But I'm really curious. Fear and curiosity lingered in Bai Li Pang Pang's heart. After hesitating for a long time, curiosity ultimately prevailed. He held the Buddhist beads tightly and carefully placed the monocle on his nose. In the eyes of the others, after Bai Li Pang Pang put on the monocle, his whole body suddenly trembled, rigidly turning his head, his gaze sweeping around little by little. His face instantly turned pale. What's wrong? What did you see? Chao Yuan asked in confusion. Bai Li Pang Pang struggled to swallow, slowly opening his mouth, his face ashen as he said, Ghosts? There are ghosts everywhere. On the other side. Lin Chia's figure flashed out from the cave, quickly turning around. Taking advantage of the fact that those paper figures had not yet crossed the cave, he slammed his palm onto the ground. The earth trembled and the trees felt the impact. Buzz. The ground beneath Lin Chia's feet cracked inch by inch, spreading to the edge of the cave. Then the entire cave entrance collapsed with a loud rumble, completely sealing off the hollow passage. Thick smoke and dust rolled in, but Lin Chia's figure showed no signs of stopping as he dashed away from the collapsing cave. He knew very well that this little trick could at most only delay the speed at which the paper figures came up. It was far from enough to completely seal them underground. Sure enough, just 10 seconds after Lin Chia's figure disappeared, the collapsed cave was broken open again. One paper figure after another surged out, their eerie faces scanning the surroundings as if searching for Lin Chia's trace. After a moment, they neatly spread out in all directions, beginning to search around bit by bit. At this time, Lin Chia had already crossed 5 streets and stopped in front of a small, dimly lit courtyard. After shaking off the paper figures, Lin Chia finally had the chance to observe his surroundings. He looked around and found himself in an ancient, abandoned town, a look of surprise appearing in his eyes. He had speculated about what lay beyond the bronze giant door. Perhaps it was a larger ant nest, perhaps a seal for some terrifying existence, or perhaps a mysterious paradise. But he had never imagined that behind the door was a city. Lin Chia's gaze fell upon the dark, small courtyard before him. For some reason he felt an unsettling sensation, but he couldn't pinpoint where this discomfort was coming from. Just then, a white paper figure entered Lin Chia's spiritual perception range, quickly drifting along the winding gravel path, as if searching for something, and it was about to come this way. Lin Chia frowned slightly, his gaze rapidly scanning the surroundings, but ultimately landing on the eerie courtyard before him. Besides here, it seemed there was no other place to hide. Taking a deep breath, Lin Chia slowly pushed open the red-painted door of the courtyard. To his surprise, the process of pushing the door was incredibly smooth. Unlike a portal that had been abandoned for a long time, not a single sound was made during the process. Silently pushing the door, Lin Chia swayed slightly and entered behind it, then slowly closed the red-painted door. In front of the vermilion door, the air once again fell into a dead silence. Chapter 363, The Residence. Lin Chia stood behind the door, his mental energy constantly focused on the scene outside. He saw the white paper figure lightly land on the stone path in front of the gate, its pale face featuring a pair of asymmetrical eyes scanning the surroundings. After sizing up the courtyard where Lin Chia was hiding for a moment, it turned around and continued its search ahead. Seeing the paper figure leave, Lin Chia let out a quiet sigh of relief. In a place like this, if he were to be entangled by a paper figure, his speed might not be enough to shake it off. At that point, the number of paper figures hunting him would only increase, and the scene outside the bronze giant door would inevitably repeat itself. These paper figures employed too many strange methods, and Lin Chia had no desire to get involved with them. He just wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible and reunite with his companions outside. Lin Chia reached out to try to open the courtyard door and leave, but at that moment he suddenly froze in place. The door, which had been easy to open and close, was now completely immovable. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't budge it even slightly. Lin Chia's brow furrowed slightly, a sense of foreboding rising in his heart. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the dark, silent house behind Lin Chia. He quickly turned around, his right hand instantly resting on the hilt of his sword, every muscle in his body tensed and ready to strike. His gaze swept across the pitch-black courtyard and house, confusion filling his eyes. Before entering this house, he had already scanned everything in the courtyard with his mental energy, confirming that there was no one here. If that was the case, where did that sound just come from? Lin Chia meticulously scanned the surroundings with his mental energy, comparing each object with the position it had been in before the sound. After a moment, he finally found the source of the noise. In the northeast corner of the courtyard, a paper broom had fallen to the ground at some unknown time. A paper broom? Lin Chia's brow tightened. He distinctly remembered that the sound had been crisp, as if a hard object had fallen to the ground. Even if it were a broom, it should have been a real one. How could paper make such a sound? Bang! The central door of the house suddenly swung open, then quickly closed again, the door colliding with the old threshold and making a faint sound of impact. Lin Chia turned sharply to look, spreading his mental energy to its fullest extent. Nothing. There was no one, no object touching that door, yet it had opened by itself and then closed again, as if someone he couldn't see or sense was opening it. Lin Chia's brow furrowed slightly. He gripped the hilt of his sword, slowly drawing both blades from their sheaths, holding them tightly as he stepped toward the house from which the sound had come. The locked courtyard door, the suddenly fallen paper broom, the automatically opening and closing door. All of this seemed to indicate that there was a mysterious force, or a mysterious presence within this house. But Lin Chia could not see it. He reached the entrance of the house, stopping in his tracks. His mental energy had already mapped out the interior, revealing that aside from the pale paper bed, paper money and paper furniture, there was nothing else. Lin Chia couldn't help but feel puzzled. What were such thin, light paper beds and furniture meant for? Surely any creature with a bit of weight would collapse them, right? Lin Chia shook his head, casting aside these complicated thoughts and focusing intently, ready to act at any moment. Even though his mental energy feedback indicated that there was nothing in the house, Lin Chia did not let his guard down, as he could vaguely guess that whatever was inside, he could neither see nor sense. A shadowy hue enveloped the door in front of Lin Chia, and under the push of darkness the door slowly opened. Lin Chia stood at the door with his sword, a faint golden light flickering in his eyes. Whoosh! As soon as the door opened a crack, a large amount of paper money flew out from the gap, overwhelming Lin Chia. His pupils constricted and he quickly swung his dual blades, the pale blue edges tracing a dense pattern of light in front of him, instantly shredding all the paper money, not a single piece touching his body. But soon Lin Chia realized that his actions were unnecessary. Because the paper money contained no malice, it floated out from the door dancing in the air, they were just paper offerings. Just as Lin Chia was taken aback, the paper furniture inside the house suddenly toppled over, as if someone had bumped into them. The paper furniture hit the ground, producing a hard collision sound as if what had fallen was not paper but real wooden furniture. Lin Chia's brow furrowed slightly as he scanned the room, finding no signs of anyone present. After hesitating for a moment, he opened his palm and softly chanted, "Wildfire cannot be extinguished, it grows again with the spring breeze." Whoosh! A flicker of flame appeared in his hand, and he gently turned his palm, intending to burn all the strange paper furniture and paper money to ashes. At that moment, a piece of paper money suddenly floated up from the ground. The paper money trembled as it flew in front of Lin Chia, who was momentarily stunned by the sight. On that piece of paper money, several large characters were written in crooked black lines. "Master, spare me. Master, spare me." Lin Chia stared at these words in shock, standing there in confusion. After a moment he tentatively spoke, "Are you human?" The piece of paper money floated back down to the ground, and the black lines began to write again. Soon a second line of text appeared on the paper money. "We are ghosts, ghosts living here." Lin Chia's brow furrowed tightly. The third line of text quickly emerged. "Master, if you truly wish to kill, then just kill me. Spare my wife and daughter. My little girl was just startled and accidentally knocked over the broom in the corner, disturbing you. Please, Master, show mercy." Upon reading this line, Lin Chia's mind immediately recalled the paper broom that had just fallen, and his confusion deepened. Was it also a ghost that knocked over the paper broom? However, he still extinguished the flame in his hand. Given the current situation, these ghosts did not seem to pose a threat to him. Lin Chia spoke in a deep voice, "Whether you are ghosts or humans, I don't seem to have offended you. Why lock the door and not let me out?" The fourth line of text quickly appeared on the paper money, as if fearing that writing slowly would cause Lin Chia to become furious. "Master, we didn't mean to lock the door. All the doors here are like this. The dead can enter but the living cannot leave. You are a living person, you can come in from outside, but trying to go out from inside is difficult." "Your place?" Lin Chia asked in confusion. "What is this place?" The ghost paused for a moment and after a while, wrote two large characters on the paper money. Fidu. Chapter 364. The Broken Fingdu. Ghosts. Li Diong frowned somewhat disbelievingly, asking, "Where are the ghosts?" Bailey Pang Pang, wearing single-lens glasses, trembled as he spoke, pointing around. "Over there, under that tree, there's a footless male ghost staring at us. To the left, at the entrance of that old house, a female ghost is peeking out, also watching us. And Li, Uncle Li, there's a small boy without eyes hanging on your back." Li Diong's body shook, his face turning pale as he slapped his shoulders, trying to brush off the filthy thing. "Is there more?" Li Diong asked anxiously. "He climbed onto your head, he's pulling your hair." Li Diong's eyes widened as he desperately began to rub his hair. One by one, his black hairs turned into silver strands, falling from his head, and in an instant his hair volume sharply decreased. Chow Yuan furrowed his brow and snatched the Buddhist beads from Bailey Pongpong's hand, starting to chant towards Li Diong. Li Diong felt a lightness on his head and he suddenly felt incredibly relaxed. The strands of hair finally stopped falling, but among the black hairs, a few silver strands had already appeared. Seeing this, Chow Yuan finally breathed a sigh of relief. He turned around and saw Bailey Peng Peng staring at him intently. "Good job, old Chow, you still claim you're not a monk." "Chow Yuan. I just recited a scripture taught to me by Master Jin Chan." Chow Yuan shrugged. "When I couldn't control the Black King within me, I relied on this scripture to stabilize my mind." "Weren't you saying that ghosts generally don't approach the living?" Qingyu asked, puzzled. Chow Yuan paused, hesitating to respond. "Generally speaking, they shouldn't. Could it be that the yin energy here is too heavy, causing these ghosts to lose control?" Bailey Peng Peng patted his shoulder. "Old Chow, your skills still aren't enough." Chow Yuan rolled his eyes. "You can see ghosts. What was happening when I was chanting just now?" Bailey Peng Peng thought for a moment. "When you were holding the Buddhist beads and chanting, the little ghost on Uncle Lee's back started to shimmer with golden light, then its body became transparent and finally it disappeared." Chow Yuan lowered his head, deep in thought. At that moment, Bailey Pongpong's expression changed slightly, and he silently took half a step back. "However, there's bad news." "What is it?" "After you finish chanting, the two ghosts that were just watching have come right in front of you." Chow Yuan was taken aback, then felt the temperature around him drop rapidly. A bone-chilling cold began to invade his body. His face changed slightly as he began to chant again with the Buddhist beads. Once the cold aura completely dissipated, Chow Yuan let out a sigh of relief, feeling somewhat parched. "Is it gone?" Chow Yuan licked his lips and asked. Bailey Pongpong's expression grew even stranger. "Well, those two are gone, but it seems like there are over a dozen ghosts rushing towards us from that street." Chow Yuan's face turned white, feeling a chill at the back of his neck. He shouted, "Run!" The four of them wasted no time and turned to flee in the opposite direction of the ghosts. As they ran, Li Diong asked in confusion, "Why are we running? Can't you chant to kill them?" "Not kill them, that's exorcism." Chow Yuan replied helplessly. "That scripture should be able to use my cultivation to guide the wandering souls in this world to the pure land, which is the best destination for those lost ghosts." "Isn't that a good thing?" Qingyu asked, puzzled. "But I don't have such profound cultivation, and besides I'm still burdened with a lot of killing karma. If I keep guiding them like this, I might end up being consumed by my own karmic fire." Chow Yuan sighed. "If my master were here with his cultivation, guiding them would be a matter of a snap of his fingers." "So, old Chow, your skills still aren't enough." Bailey Peng Peng couldn't help but interject. "Chow Yuan, is there any other way to kill them?" And Qingyu frowned and asked. "Ghosts are formless and intangible. They are essentially a special magnetic field. Besides my Black King annihilation killing aura, your attacks are ineffective against them. But if I release the Black King here without Lin Chia around, can you hold me down?" Chow Yuan looked back. Bailey Peng Peng pondered for a moment. "Let's just run." "Agreed." Fingdu, the legendary underworld. Lin Chia looked at these two words, surprise flashing in his eyes. As a native of the Great Xia, Lin Chia had certainly heard many tales about the underworld. The Hall of Yama, the Naiha Bridge, Mengpo's Soup, the waters of the Yellow Springs, all originating from the legendary ghost city Fingdu. He never expected that after passing through that giant bronze door, he would find himself in the famous Fingdu. But this place was far too different from what he had imagined. Where's the Naiha Bridge? Where's the waters of the Yellow Springs? Where's the Hall of Yama? Even without these, it shouldn't look like a dilapidated and desolate scene, right? The legendary Fingdu is said to be the northern ghost kingdom, with mountains rising 2,600 miles high and a vast area of 30,000 miles, complete with palaces belonging to the gods. Yet here, it looked merely like a ruined town. Thinking this, Lin Chia couldn't help but ask, "Was it always like this?" Soon words quickly appeared on the paper money. No, long ago Fingdu was a vast death realm exclusive to the ghost world. However, one day the gods suddenly vanished without a trace, and the emperor of Fingdu also disappeared. Fortunately, the death laws of Fingdu could operate automatically without divine oversight, so there were no immediate issues. After a long time, four strangely appearing gods suddenly invaded Fengdu, shattering it into 5 pieces. After taking 1 piece each, only this smallest piece remained, which is here. Upon hearing this, Lin Chie's expression darkened. The Emperor of Fengdu is the legendary ruler of the underworld, the supreme deity of the Taoist underworld, a being that could stand toe-to-toe with the legendary Jade Emperor. From what he knew, Lin Chie could roughly guess what had happened. A century ago, the gods of Great Xia vanished without reason, and the Emperor of Fengdu along with many other gods also disappeared. Without the gods, Fengdu was invaded by several foreign gods, who forcibly took away several of the largest pieces of Fengdu. Lin Chie couldn't help but ask, what gods were those 4 who took the pieces of Fengdu? In the next moment, a line of small black characters slowly appeared on the paper. Those 4 foreign gods call themselves Osiris, Hades, Yama, and Satan. Chapter 365. The living do not emerge. Lin Chie couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. He had heard of the names of these 4 deities, and one could say they were well known to him. Osiris is one of the 9 pillar gods in Egyptian mythology and is also the king of the underworld in ancient Egyptian lore. Hades, of course, is one of the 12 Olympian gods, the king of the underworld in ancient Greek mythology, and the elder brother of Poseidon and Zeus. Yama is the king of the underworld in Indian mythology, also known as King Yen-luo, and is regarded as the god of death. As for Satan, he is the demon who rules hell as recorded in the Bible. These 4 deities all wield authority related to death. After the disappearance of the likes of Emperor Fengdu and other gods of the Great Xia, shattering and merging Fengdu would naturally be of great benefit to them. And that last neglected fragment was forever hidden beneath the northern borders of the Great Xia. Since there is no Emperor Fengdu now, what governs this town? Lin Chie spoke again. No one governs it. After the gods left, the rules of the 6 paths of reincarnation did not change. They can still send all living beings to the afterlife. However, we souls who once lingered in Fengdu can only be trapped here forever. We have existed for too long, and some of these souls have undergone mutations, turning into ferocious, vengeful spirits. If this continues, this shattered Fengdu will eventually evolve into a town of vengeful spirits. Upon seeing this sentence, Lin Chie was slightly taken aback. He did not expect that the paper figure which had nearly put him to death outside was actually the paper soldier guarding this ghost town. It must be that after the Ant Queen drilled through the wall, the paper figure followed the passage to the outside. Some even fortuitously left the Ant Queen's cave, crossing the crack into the primeval forest. Thus, those mysterious legends came to be. This is also why, when Lin Chie and others discovered the paper figures in the abandoned forest, the latter did not initiate an attack but focused on fleeing. Their duty was to guard this Fengdu. Anything that did not pose a threat to Fengdu was not their target. Previously, when Lin Chie directly intruded before the bronze giant door, he was considered an outsider, which naturally attracted the assault of the paper soldiers. If it weren't for Lin Chie having the mortal realm, he would have likely been assimilated by the paper figures on the spot. Lin Chie seemed to think of something. Have you seen a large white ant? Yes, about 2 years ago, it suddenly appeared in a corner of Fengdu, causing all the paper soldiers to chase after it. Later, it escaped heavily injured from this town and no one knows where it went. Lin Chie understood. The facts were similar to his speculation. The Ant Queen had escaped from this Fengdu, and the caves leading here were the paths it left behind during its escape. I understand. Lin Chie nodded. One last question: how do I leave this house? The dead can enter but the living cannot exit. Lin Chie's living breath could not pass through that vermilion door, but he could not remain trapped here forever. The ghost hesitated for a moment and cautiously wrote on the paper money. The door cannot be opened. Why don't you jump over the wall? Lin Chie. The corners of Lin Chie's mouth twitched slightly as he turned and walked toward the outside of the house. What a clever idea to jump over the wall when the door won't open. As it turned out, jumping over the wall was indeed feasible. Lin Chie lightly leaped and easily cleared the not-so-high surrounding wall, instantly returning to the outside of the courtyard. Lin Chie scanned the surroundings with his spiritual power, confirming that there were no paper figures nearby, and then quickly ran in the direction he had come from. With the spiritual perception of the mortal realm, Lin Chie was always able to hide his figure before the paper figures came searching, safely making his way back to the black wall. At this moment, the cave passage he had come through had completely collapsed. It would take a long time to reopen it, but the area around him was entirely open with no hiding places at all. If any paper figure discovered him during the digging process, he would undoubtedly face terrifying pursuit. After pondering for a moment, Lin Chia left the cave entrance and walked up to the bronze giant door. I wonder if this door can be opened from the inside? Lin Chia placed his hand on the bronze giant door, gradually applying force, even using the enhancement of the sky's bard, yet he still could not budge it an inch. After trying for a minute, Lin Chia sighed helplessly. Any portal within Fengdu allows the dead to enter, but the living cannot exit. He could not open this door. Moreover, this place was different from that courtyard. In the courtyard he could jump over the wall if he couldn't open the door, but this black city wall didn't even have a thumb-sized gap, making it impossible to climb over. Could it be that he really had to take the risk of digging through that cave? Just as Lin Chia was deep in thought, a blinding golden light suddenly burst forth in the darkness from a distance. Immediately after, there was a series of rumbling sounds. Lin Chia looked up in shock, gazing in that direction for a moment, confirming that it was indeed the plump Bai Li with the Yaoguang, and he stood there dumbfounded. How did they get in? Lin Chia snapped back to reality. Without a moment's hesitation, he immediately dashed toward the source of the sound. Inside Fengdu, 4 figures were sprinting along the broken stone path in the center. What's going on? Chao Yuan asked while running. Bai Li adjusted his monocle and glanced back, seeing the empty, dark road behind them, with nothing but an extreme chill rapidly sweeping toward them. Bai Li's mouth twitched wildly, his face pale as he spoke. There's another batch now. There are at least over 100 ghosts. And among them, there are a few that look different, like insects or beasts, running particularly fast. Damn it! Can't we find a way to shake them off? Li Diang couldn't help but say. This ghostly place is filled with ghosts. How can we shake them off? Bai Li turned to look ahead, first stunned, then anxiously exclaimed, a group is coming from the front too. About 30 of them. Turn left. Li Diang glanced sideways without thinking, shouted loudly. The 4 of them simultaneously hit the brakes and dashed toward the empty road on the left. Behind them, 2 cold auras converged, surging toward them like a tide. With this level of deathly aura, just a little contact would at least take 10 years off one's life. Chao Yuan warned, feeling the cold wind approaching from behind. Damn. I don't want to die yet. Upon hearing this, Bai Li immediately seemed to be injected with adrenaline, charging from the back of the group to the front. Chapter 366. Luo Feng's 6 Heavens. If it weren't for the loss of the soul-severing blade, I wouldn't be in such a dire situation. Bai Li Pang ran while reminiscing about the soul-severing blade that had vanished into the depths of the earth with Shen Qingzhu. There were too few forbidden items capable of harming souls, and he only had that one. The ghosts behind the 4 were gathering in greater numbers, as if they had gone mad, surging toward Chao Yuan. Their wailing sounded like a chilling wind brushing past the 4, as if someone was crying, begging, and roaring. Please save us. Purge me, purge me. If this continues, I will become a vengeful spirit too. But I want to transcend, I want to reincarnate once more. You can do it, so why won't you purge me? Why? I beg you, even if you won't purge me, at least purge my child, please. Chao Yuan's scripture of transcendence, which came at the cost of his own cultivation, was too tempting for the ghosts, especially those lonely souls trapped in this ghost city for nearly a century due to the disappearance of the deities. Their desire for transcendence and rebirth had become an obsession. Chao Yuan was their only hope. Right turn. The 4 arrived at a fork in the road and Li Diang shouted again. Bai Li Pang turned with them to run right, unable to help but ask. Uncle Li, how much longer until we reach the exit? If this goes on, we'll really be worn out here. Li Diang was taken aback. What exit? The 4 running at full speed jolted. What? Chao Yuan turned back sharply. Aren't you directing us back to the bronze giant door? In this pitch blackness, how could I remember the way? Then what about those directions you shouted? I just shouted randomly. Damn it, we're doomed this time. Bai Li Pang nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. He never expected that after following Li Diang for so long, they were just going by instinct. But this couldn't be blamed on Li Diang. There wasn't a glimmer of light in the entire ghost city. They could only rely on their flashlights to find their way. Being chased by a horde of ghosts for so long, they had already rushed deep into the ghost city. Where could they see the way back? Ahead, the four reached another fork in the road. Left turn. Li Diang once again entered his blind guess mode. Pa, this time follow me. Right turn. As soon as Bailey Pang Pang said this, he was about to turn right when he saw a large group of pale paper figures surging in from the right alley like a white wave. Damn, listen to Uncle Li. Bailey Pang Pang slammed on the brakes and dashed left with the others. The speed of the paper soldiers was faster than that of Bailey Pang Pang and the others. In an instant they surpassed the relentless ghosts, and the distance between them and the four began to close rapidly. Yao Guang. Bailey Pang Pang reached out and brushed his chest, a streak of golden light converging into a shining long sword, slicing through the air behind them, aimed straight at the pursuing paper soldiers. At that moment, all the paper figures instantly folded, transforming into sheets of thin white paper that easily evaded the strike of Yao Guang. The massive sword light swept past without injuring a single paper figure. Boom! The golden sword light swept through the low houses around, directly collapsing a mud house, and the rolling dust enveloped the four. Immediately after, the figures of the paper soldiers surged out from the dust, like maggots clinging to bones, impossible to shake off. Just as the four were about to be caught, magnificent black palaces appeared at the end of the road, faintly visible. These black palaces emitted a dark, ghostly glow, seemingly made of the same material as the outer city walls. Their architectural style was eerie and strange, yet from a distance they appeared grand and imposing, giving off a powerful sense of oppression. We're about to be caught. And Qingyu glanced back at the paper figures, now less than 100 meters away, and frowned as she spoke. Chao Yuan stared at the palaces, feeling inexplicably uneasy. The oppressive aura of these palaces sent chills down his spine. But in the current situation there was no other choice. Rush in and close the door. Chao Yuan shouted loudly. The four used all their strength, charging toward one of the palace doors. Bailey Pang Pang reached out and pushed hard against the vermilion door. The red door opened effortlessly as if weightless, and the four rushed inside. Li Diang and Chao Yuan each braced against a door, straining to close it. Just as the paper figures were about to reach the door, the vermilion door slammed shut, leaving no gap. They paused at the door, seemingly a bit fearful, retreating a few meters. After lingering for a moment, they scattered in all directions. Behind the door, Bailey Pang Pang gasped for breath, beads of sweat rolling down his cheeks, his eyes still filled with lingering fear. Damn it, what exactly are those paper figures? Why do they feel so different from what we saw in the abandoned forest? And Qingyu nodded. Their features are more refined, almost as if they've come to life. And I feel like I've seen those faces somewhere before. I feel the same way. Chao Yuan nodded heavily. Li Diang let out a long breath, then seemed to remember something and shone his flashlight around. The interior of this palace was vast. The beam of the flashlight illuminated only a small area. Under the white light, the black ceiling, covered in grayish-blue inscriptions, was as deep as the night sky. On either side stood massive pillars supporting the palace, each thick enough for 5 or 6 people to embrace, also covered in grayish-blue inscriptions. Where is this place? Li Diang frowned slightly. When we just came in, there seemed to be a plaque at the entrance, but I couldn't see what it said. Chao Yuan said helplessly. Zhongling Qifei Heavenly Palace. And Qingyu suddenly spoke up. I saw it clearly. Zhongling Qifei Heavenly Palace? Li Diang scratched his head in confusion. That name sounds a bit familiar. It's one of the 6 heavenly palaces of Luofeng in legend. Chao Yuan said thoughtfully. In the mythology of the great Xia Taoism, the underworld is governed by the Emperor of Fengdu, under which are the 5 ghost emperors. Within Fengdu there are 6 ghostly palaces known as the 6 heavens of Luofeng, each guarded by a ghost deity. Zhongling Qifei Palace is one of those heavenly palaces. Are you saying this is Fengdu? Bailey Pang Pang's eyes widened. No wonder there are so many ghosts. So we've barged into a heavenly palace. It shouldn't be dangerous, right? I don't know, but what can be confirmed is that all the ghost deities disappeared over 100 years ago. Now these 6 heavens of Luofeng are merely empty palaces. Chao Yuan turned to look into the dark depths of the palace, slowly speaking.